Hi, I'm delighted to introduce this episode of the Art Biz podcast to you. My guest for this episode is Ruby Lopez Harper. She's the Executive Director of CERF Plus, or the Craft Emergency Relief Fund. This episode is part of Podcasthon. It's an international event from podcasters all over the globe highlighting a charity of choice. And CERF Plus is my charity of choice. They are there when artists need them most. And what I want you to do is to listen to the small steps that you can take now to protect your business so that you don't need CERF Plus in the future, or that when you do, you minimize your impact. Ruby and I are going to go over the steps that you can take and the resources that are available to you at CERF Plus. So please enjoy this interview with Ruby Lopez Harper. Hi, Ruby. Welcome to the Art Biz.
Hi, how you doing today?
Doing okay, thank you. I am excited to talk with you because I've been a longtime supporter of CERF Plus back before it was CERF Plus, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with you and sharing CERF Plus with other people. So before we dive into the other questions, maybe give us a background of CERF Plus and what y'all do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, the Craft Emergency Relief Fund, as many people know more affectionately as CERF Plus, was established in 1985. And the origin story goes that there was this wonderful group of artists that would travel together and see each other at different marketplaces and festivals throughout the country. And as they would hear of emergencies or happenings that affected their fellow artists, they would pass the hat at the marketplace or the festival, and then they would give the raised amount to the affected artist. So we really were founded on a spirit of mutual aid, and that spirit hasn't left the heart of the organization. And so over the years, we've expanded on the original intent of these emergency relief grants. We've added disaster response to that initiative. And then we've also expanded out some readiness resources that provide funding and tools and trainings for artists that are interested in safeguarding their practice before a disaster or emergency happens. So that we've really leaned into that in our 40th anniversary this year, resurfacing and really letting that mutual aid spirit take center stage.
I have never heard that story before. Or if I had forgotten it. So I love the pass the hat thing because it just seems so applicable here. And also, it didn't even dawn on me that that was your 40th anniversary year. So happy anniversary. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. That's fantastic. So we're going to get into the details of all of that. What types of emergencies does CERF Plus typically respond to?
So, we really, the full range of things that you could think about, the day-to-day things, if there is a fire in someone's studio or a fire in their home where their workplace is, from theft. So, often you hear festival artists, their vehicle was broken into and their inventory was stolen, or their vehicle was stolen, or their trailer was stolen. And so we're able to provide some support after those types of happenings. But it's also medical emergencies, so unexpected injuries or the aftermath of having an injury. We've also supported caregiving, where an artist has to provide care to an immediate family member that disrupts their practice. And then also in the bigger macro, the disaster response work. So, this might date our conversation, but Hurricane Helene and Milton that moved through the Appalachian region in late 2024. We've been very involved with providing support for the artists that lost studios, facilities, homes, a lot of their work that was in galleries that were affected. And now on the heels of that, we've been dealing with the wildfires that have been moving through the Los Angeles area in early 2025. So we really are wherever, craft artists are, and the day-to-day disruptions that they're dealing with. We really try to be very generous and inclusive in how we define emergency, how we define disaster, and even more so how craft artists self-identify.
Say more about that, about how craft artists self-identify. What do you mean by that?
So a lot of times people want us to define what craft is. And there's kind of a general understanding of what craft is in terms of the kind of larger knowledge base. But craft as a practice, as in any art form, evolves and morphs and adopts and adapts. And so we're still seeing evolution in how people participate in craft, how they practice craft. We're starting to see a lot of folks trying to, understand how, resin and, different techniques are taking hold, and what does that look like? And certainly as you're expanding the materials that are being used, that can also be a place where maybe we're not as knowledgeable, but we're trusting the artists that, oh, this is how they practice that, and here are, where we can make sense of it, and where we can, again, be inclusive of it.
Gotcha. Okay, so there might be some people listening who don't self-identify as craft artists, but I still think they should listen. And I would love for you to tell them why they should still listen and why they should care about this conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the biggest opportunities we have as individual people. So, we often talk about our readiness work from a personal preparedness and a professional preparedness, and professional being your artistic practice. So, a lot of the resources that we have on our website, a lot of the materials that we've designed, and even a lot of our online webinars, workshops are applicable beyond being a craft artist. You really can adapt these strategies in a lot of different practices. So if you're not a craft artist and you're listening, there's still a lot of information that you can gain from even just exploring some of the resources that we have on our website. The studio protector that we've produced is applicable to any studio practice, whether you're a craft artist or a two-dimensional artist, or you're working in
Right.
photography. Even, I think there's just a lot of things that people can pick up, and picking up any one thing is going to ensure that your practice can stabilize and recuperate much more quickly than if you do no measures to safeguard your
Right.
practice at all.
Right. Well, you may not want to talk about specific situations because of the position that you're in, but I know of so many artists who wish they had taken these precautions, who wish
Yeah,
they had backed up their computers, who wish they had stored
simply.
things offsite, who wish they had gotten that business insurance.
Right.
And you don't think about it until it's too late.
Oh no, yeah, no, it is probably the least appealing work to do, because I think at our core, it pushes, like, it pokes at our mortality, right? It pokes at our vulnerability. It pokes at our uncertainty. And that's not a comfortable place for people to go. And so we really try to make the information that we have available, and certainly with the partners that we work with through the National Coalition for Arts Preparedness and Emergency Response, we try to create materials that are inviting, that are engaging, that aren't doom and gloom and, kind of tragedy driven. It's really about, how do you protect yourself? How do you empower yourself? How are you educating yourself? And here's where you can get resources, and here's where you can find
Right.
information.
Right.
So even as a practice, I think we're trying to figure out how to get people to normalize these conversations, because they really are going to help when something happens.
Yeah. Well, it's about being a responsible business owner. It's about taking control of all aspects of your business and not, um, so that you can say, I
Yeah.
did all these steps and I mean, it's easier to ask for help when you've done all those steps also.
And that is so true, especially when you think about some of the more formal access points. FEMA is going to require a level of documentation. If you aren't already documenting your financial information, if you're not documenting and taking care of your insurance, and you're not documenting your equipment purchases, those things are going to make it harder for people to access resources when something big happens. I also think it's a level of adulting for yourself, knowing where and how you're going to evacuate if you ever have to evacuate, knowing where the things are that you need to have quick hands on, knowing that you've got a site where you can, have things safe, or somebody that can support you when all of your systems fall down. I think a lot of that is just, also basic adulting for yourself. So if you would do it for your personal, make sure that you're doing it for your professional as well, right? That if you're told put these important documents in a safe place, what are your artistic practice documents that you need to also be, taking care of and housing? Because like you said, if you don't back up that computer and something happens to it, it gets stolen or it melts in a fire, all of that is lost. It is not recoverable.
So, with those recent disasters that we were talking about, and I think it's okay to date them because those are going to be in our memory for a long time. Um, I want to go over some immediate steps that artists could use to, especially the artists in disaster prone areas. Can you, and I kind of think we're all there now, but can take to protect their work and their livelihoods. And we've mentioned some of those, so maybe let's just list them outright. We talked about insurance, we talked about backing up, we talked about finding safe places
Mm-hmm.
for evacuation. What else should we add to that list?
Yeah, so one, building your knowledge. The disaster management in the arts infrastructure isn't a singular structure. So being aware of what your community's response structures are. Is there, a drill that happens? Have you spoken, especially if you're connected with other artists? Do you know how the police and the fire department, what their plans are if something were to happen? I also encourage people to be familiar with what your area is most prone to experience, because not everybody's going to be dealing with floods. Not everybody's going to deal with wildfires. Not everyone is going to deal with hurricanes and tornadoes. But there are areas of the country that are more likely to experience those type of climate related events. And then there's also just how are you dealing with your, individual security. So if you're traveling and you put everything in your back seat, is all of that visible from the windows of your vehicle? So kind of following some, strategies that we use to keep ourselves safe on a day-to-day basis are the same strategies that you're going to incorporate when you're dealing with your artistic inventory, especially with jewelers, metalsmiths. Their materials tend to be a little more expensive when they're making certain items. And, folks get targeted. It's really sad.
Oh,
So
I know
ask,
specific people who have had their inventories stolen
oh my
at
word.
on the way to
Yeah.
a show. Yeah,
Right? And
absolutely.
when you're on site, you're getting ready to go to a marketplace or a festival, ask them what their security measures are. Let them know, the art form that I bring tends to be most vulnerable for, car theft or vehicle theft or trailer theft. What are the plans for when we're on site to keep our inventory protected? Do you have security that's going to be moving around and monitoring after hours? And if there isn't, then how are you going to safeguard your items? Because nobody wants to break down their booth every night, but you also don't want to leave everything out in the open and vulnerable. So, yeah,
Right.
just some things that you should ask and be aware of as you're moving around in these spaces, I think are really important and helpful.
Yeah, I think I have found that artists are don't feel empowered to ask those questions, and I hope that by listening to this conversation that they know they need to ask those questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And even, if you're doing an outdoor event, ask what is the plan if unexpected weather hits the festival and blows my tent away. What resources do you have available? How do we go about dealing with that? Because a lot of the places, you want to believe that they're all doing everything, and not that they're not trying, but sometimes it isn't top of mind in the same way that it isn't top of mind for the artists that are participating in these outdoor events. So I think it's, again, normalizing the questions. It is okay to ask, and then you make a decision based on the answers that you're getting.
Well, and likewise, doesn't have to be an outdoor festival, but if wherever you show your art, is my work insured there? And a lot of times it's not, but you need to know that and not be surprised about it later, and
Right.
be able to insure your work separately if needed. Yeah.
Or even like, what happens if my piece gets damaged? How is that going to be dealt with?
Yes.
I feel like there's simple questions, but I think also we're so excited to be participating or to be featured or to be invited. We just take that for granted. And we really do need to protect ourselves. I mean, I think that's all at the core of readiness and preparedness, is that how are you protecting yourself if something happens?
Hey, Alyson here, popping in with an invitation for you. We've been talking about the importance of preparing for emergencies, preparing for success even. And part of that is getting your business systems right. And this is exactly what we do in my Essentials for Artist Success program. I hope you'll take a look at it and see if it's right for you. It's at artbizsuccess.com/essentials. What common challenges, in addition to what you've already mentioned, do artists face after a disaster, specifically disaster, and how does CERF Plus step in to help?
Oh my gosh. The biggest, well, it depends on so many things. But largely it's housing is almost always a thing that people have to worry about. Your basic needs are going to be your immediate concern. And so if you are in an area where the weather events that you're going to be dealing with can cause displacement, having an idea of where you're going to go ahead of time is super helpful. We can help when you get where once you've stabilized, because the $3,000 grants that we do, that are the relief grants, those can be accessed pretty quickly. So as long as you're an eligible artist, you have a craft practice, you're over the age of 18, you have a public facing element to the work that you're doing, as long as you clear that eligibility. For the big disaster events, we require very minimal document, and the application is pretty straightforward. And we can typically turn those around. If everything checks and it all goes through, we can turn around a grant usually within like 15 to 20 business days. And that's from application.
Which is fast in grant application terms.
Yeah. And, when people select direct deposit, it makes it even faster because we don't have to deal with the waiting game of the mail system. Right. So once people cover basic needs, I think that's like the immediate thing that a lot of folks really struggle with. So thinking about what your evacuation plan is going to be super helpful. And then certainly applying for the grants and resources that become available after a disaster. It's going to be hard, but like taking the time to read the eligibility actually gives you more time back, because you're not just applying to everything in the hopes that you get something, but the time that you have and the mental space that you have is dedicated to pursuing resources that are most likely to help you. Because we do hear a lot of frustration in the weeks after a disaster event from folks that are just trying to figure it out. So the other thing I think that's helpful is for folks to familiarize yourself with what resources exist today, so that you're not trying to do that while you're trying to figure out, where you're going to sleep and how you're going to feed your family or feed yourself or feed your friends, because all of that is just so stressful.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really appreciate about our program is that it's open 24/7, 365. So there's no deadline to worry about. So if the disaster happens at the beginning of January, you have weeks and weeks to get your application in. So there's no immediacy to the funding that we're doing, which gives people some peace of mind, because they're not having to worry about, I have to get to these dollars as fast as I can.
Right.
Take care of
Right.
yourself, and then we'll be here when you're ready.
Right. Does Surf Plus do you have on your website additional resources that you send artists to, like
Yes.
FEMA and state
Oh,
organizations?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yes. And
great. We'll
if
link to
people do
those for
submit
sure.
Yeah, and if people do submit an application and they happen to not be eligible, or for whatever reason they're not going to be approved for funding, we will give them a full list of everything that we know that is kind of the day-to-day things that we know are out there all the time, and then we start adding things that are more tailored to the disaster that they're applying as a result of. So, for example, with the LA wildfires, we've been able to include a couple of funds that have opened that are unique for that event, in addition to the resources that we know are available on an ongoing basis.
Right. Right. You all are very responsive. I don't know if this is too soon to bring this up, but is Surf Plus affected in any way by the current federal administration?
Oh, what a great question. So we are very, very blessed and very, very lucky that we do not rely on federal funding to operate. We have received funding in the past from the National Endowment for the Arts for project-based work, and all of that work has been completed. So we don't really have any money in motion or money that we're waiting for. So it gives us a lot of freedom because we're largely funded by individual donors, and a large proportion of the donors that support us are past recipients or know someone that has benefited from the programs that we run. So again, kind of back to the beginning, we're still very much driven by this mutual aid spirit, artists helping artists, community helping the community. So that's to our benefit in moments like this, where I think things around us feel very chaotic, and can feel uncertain. For us, it's just another Tuesday, and we keep moving forward. We have taken a stance in terms of our diversity, equity, inclusion, and access efforts to do the work, and less about the content banners that signal we're doing the work.
Mhm.
So we feel a little under the radar in that regard. Like, I don't think that people are going to be targeting our work, because we don't have kind of these visual cues to call people. But it's not going to slow us down. Our goal is to make sure that the people who need the resources have access to the resources. We continue to build relationships with communities that we know are largely underrepresented within our grantee pool, and certainly within our applicant pool. And that's not going to slow down. Our strategic pillars that guide our work currently include a spirit of generosity and inclusivity, a culture of care, so that we are giving to the staff in service to the community we serve. And we also direct our resources to the folks that are most vulnerable. So I think that's never going to change, regardless of what's happening kind of in the bigger structure around us. But yeah, we've been really blessed that individuals and their commitment to this work and supporting this work has been unwavering.
Yeah, wonderful. You have on your website, I know I send people to at least two places on your website. One is the insurance page,
Mhm.
and one is the studio protector,
Mhm.
which I used to have the physical wheel
Mhm.
of the studio protector, but now it's all digital. Thank heavens, so more people can access it.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about those, and maybe other like specific places for people that aren't in an immediate need situation can look for preparedness.
Yeah, so the Studio Protector is an area of the website. We just refreshed all of the materials. We've done a number of translations and guides to accompany the resources that you can find in the Studio Protector area. We encourage folks to go to that area of the website and explore the risk assessment guide, which will give you some prompts to understand where the areas are you most at risk of something happening either within your practice or within your studio space, your work area. And that can help guide you towards kind of the next level of resources. So we have videos you can watch, we have guides that you can read that also help kind of take you step by step through thinking through different aspects of safeguarding your practice. And we've done a lot of those translated to Spanish as well. So we're trying to make them a little more accessible. The insurance area is really around what kind of questions should you be asking? How do you find access to insurance providers? So it gives a little bit of guidance for folks that may not know where to start. Unfortunately, we do get a lot of questions about do you have a directory of our insurance providers? And then in the past, we were able to do that. But people across the country, everything is so nuanced anymore. And local insurance parameters change and shift, and we just don't have the staffing to keep up with that. So we do have kind of crafted that more towards recommendations and guidance versus a full directory. And certainly we encourage folks to reach out to their current insurance providers for guidance as well.
Well, I think it's important to emphasize this because we haven't said it yet, but that most homeowners insurance will not cover any business. You have to add that on for most people, and business insurance is different from homeowners insurance.
It is. And oftentimes you can call your homeowner insurance company and they'll help you. They can help direct you towards insurance that's better suited for your circumstances. Because there's a lot of nuances. And if you have your, work area in the basement of your home versus in a facility or another, kind of space that's outside but on your property, like all of those things come with different requirements. So it's really better to ask and get connected locally. And that's the kind of work that gets a little bit beyond what we're able to do. But certainly the insurance, site within our website is helpful in trying to navigate some of those basic questions and how to get to the thing that you're going to need.
I think it's valuable that it's a place to start, and it's important. I love that you said adulting earlier. I think it's important that everyone knows their situation is unique and they need to ask some questions. They need to do their own research, and there's not going to be like one resource that says this is what you need to do, because it's just not possible. And if it is, that's a red flag probably.
Yeah, this type of living is not one size fits everybody. You do really have to do a little work. In addition to honing your technique and getting to the materials and supplies and, your tools, all of this is part of that work of your artistic practice. And more so if you're monetizing and reliant on your practice as an income stream, you're going to want to make sure that you're setting up all of these pieces and parts ahead of time, because it's only going to benefit if something ever happens.
Yeah. Besides the Studio Protector and the insurance part, are there any other parts of your website or your programming that you would direct listeners to?
Oh, yeah. So one of the other that we haven't really mentioned is the Get Ready grant program. So twice a year, we have a grant program that provides funding for craft artists to safeguard their practice. And that can be as widely defined as you can imagine, from creating a digital storage and updating their technology. It's documenting their work. It's improving their web commerce. It's copyright. We had one artist do a consultation with a copyright lawyer to make sure that their artistic designs were protected. It's, I mean, equipment. The basic is equipment, right? A lot of people buy ventilators or dust collectors or, masks, ergonomic stuff like your chair, your counter, your anything that keeps you from injuring yourself or putting yourself in a position where you're unhealthy. But then also just thinking about that in terms of your practical business needs. That program can be really helpful. We increased the grant amount last year from $500 to $1,000, so we're doing $1,000 grants now. It's kind of a high demand program, so we select artists through a lottery system so that we can move quickly and also minimize the expense to run the program. So yeah, they open in the spring and in the fall.
Okay. So that is one of the grants that does have a time. It's the emergency
That is
grants
a
do
time.
not, but this does have a time
This one is
window.
time. Yeah.
Okay.
We usually have the application open we try to run the application open for 60 days. And then it takes about a month to do all of the back end and then alert the selected artists. And people can reapply. If you don't get an award in the spring, you can come back with the same application, do it again in the fall. So there's no sit out period. There's no waiting period. Yeah.
Gotcha. And anything else you wanted to mention about preparedness that's on your website, or do you do open webinars or programs
Yep.
for artists?
Yep. So we do have an educational program. We try to do safeguarding webinars at least once a quarter. We also do those on demand. So if artists are part of a collective or part of a local guild or part of a art center, we will come in person because we do have staff all over the country, or we can do it online. But we offer those on demand whenever we can accommodate them. We typically do those free of charge for individual artists that are organizing it because we think it's important to get the information out. So we do have some recorded webinars on our YouTube page that you can get to from our website. And then we also have, as I mentioned, some videos in the Studio Protector area that are also helpful. And then during the kind of education series, we also try to feature other providers so that we're sharing information with artists about what else is out there. So another resource that I would recommend artists look into just to also learn about what other funders and resources are available is the website for the National Coalition for Arts Preparedness and Emergency Response. It's ncaper.org, NCAPER. And if you go to the steering committee listing, all of those organizations provide resources for artists, and not just craft artists, they're artists across all of the disciplines. Folks like Music Cares, which supports musicians and artists in the music industry. The Entertainment Community Fund, which focuses primarily on performing arts and related technical artistry. And then there's, resources like the Rauschenberg, which is medical support for artists that have an injury or things like that. So we have resources, but there's a lot more out there. And I think in addition to checking out our website, checking out these other folks that are doing similar work before something happens, so you know where to go when the time comes.
Absolutely. So important. Before I let you go, how can listeners contribute to your mission, whether financially or through awareness and advocacy? How can we help?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The best help you can give as a person out in the wild is just tell people that we exist. It is amazing to me that in our 40th year, there are still people who say, I had no idea. Oh my word. Okay. Well, now that you know, you need to tell everybody else that we are here and that we provide this support. If folks are interested, they can certainly visit our website and make a donation. That is always helpful. That keeps us able to do the work that we're doing. Also, running independent fundraisers. A lot of individual artists and art centers and galleries and, kind of guilds have come together over the years and certainly came out in force after Helene to run independent fundraisers. It's a portion of their sales for a specific event, or it's a percentage of, or, folks have come together, donated, and done an auction. I mean, there's so many different iterations, and we do have a toolkit on the website if folks want some additional support. And then really, I think,
you mean a toolkit for running? Sorry,
for running an independent fundraiser. Yeah,
gotcha.
We've got
Perfect.
like a tip kit. And if folks let us know, we can also help promote it on our social channels. But I think the big thing to support the work itself is just do one thing today, this month, this week to safeguard your practice. That is the best thing that you can do to support this work. And then tell someone else what you did so that they get inspired to do it too.
I love that. Ruby, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of The Art Biz with my guest, Ruby Lopez Harper of Craft Emergency Relief Fund, or CERF Plus. It is my charity, my nonprofit of choice as part of Podcasthon. It's the third year of this international event where we highlight charities. We podcasters highlight charities around the world. If you are able to, I hope you'll think about supporting CERF Plus. You never know when you'll need their services, and they have so many services, so much information available to you free now. Visit cerfplus.org to find out more. And hey, if you would ever rather listen to The Art Biz than watch it here on YouTube, check us out at wherever you get your podcasts or at artbizpodcast.com.